Hackers successfully went after car dealerships. Now they're going after furniture makers and Disney. Meanwhile, Amazon racks up billions of dollars in sales during Prime Day /week/month, leading the summer shopping season. We're going to talk about these stories and more on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. The guy behind the monitors is Chris. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. And joining us on the show this week as our guest co-host is Evan Kirstel. He is a world-famous B2B tech influencer, also known as Techfluencer. And this covers everything from content creation, analysis, social media master. He has deep expertise in the world of enterprise tech, cloud computing, 5G, AI, telecom, and lots of other topics. And we're really, really happy to have him on the show. So welcome to the show, Evan.
Wonderful to be here. Honored and big fan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm a big fan of your stuff, too. I follow you on LinkedIn and watch a lot of your stuff. So
feeling the love. It's just a love fest.
That's right. It's podcasters and streamers talking to other podcasters and streamers. So that's but let's get into the news week. I'll tell you, the news this week was a little overshadowed by some political and other news events. And so we're not really going to talk about those events. We're going to talk about as much tech stuff as we can this week. So that's kind of the warning ahead of the show, right? Yep. All right. So let's get into the first story of the week. The first topic I want to talk about is it feels like it's a hacker summer this week because there were three related stories around the world of hacking. So the first one was one of the largest furniture companies in the U.S. was forced to shut down its manufacturing facilities following a ransomware attack that began 2 weeks ago. Bassett Furniture Industries said it shut down some of its information technology systems after it discovered unauthorized access on July 10th. The hacker, quote, disrupted the company's business operations by encrypting some data files and forced the company to activate its incident response plan, which the company said in a regulatory filing. As a result, basically they had to shut down some systems. The company has not been, and as of the date of the report, is not operating its manufacturing facilities. The company's retail stores and e-commerce platform are open and customers are able to place orders and purchase available merchandise. However, the company's ability to fulfill orders is currently impacted. And company officials said they are working to bring impacted systems back online and implement workarounds in order to reduce the disruption. Have you seen or heard of this before where, a company has basically shut down its operations due to a hack or a ransomware attack, Evan?
Oh, yeah. This is very common. It's something I experienced last week. I went to my Toyota dealer for a big service and update. And we all saw the attack on the nationwide dealerships there. They actually paid the ransom in that case. Yep. But, shut down operations. So these are becoming potentially extinction level events for companies.
Yeah.
It's no longer a data breach and information was stolen and it's on the dark web. It's, we're no longer operating as a concern. So beyond the individual impact of employees, customers are impacted. The whole supply chain is disrupted and some companies won't survive. Yeah, these kind of attacks.
What's interesting here is that, at least according when the story came out, that no ransomware group had come forward yet to take credit. And so it's unclear yet whether Bassett is going to pay the ransomware or not. But I can understand the frustration if I was a customer of going to a furniture store and they say, well, we'll place the order with so-and-so and then usually it takes like 3 to 4 weeks before you get your furniture. Now they might just say to you, like, you might not get it for 3 to 4 months now if depending on how long this could last, right?
Yeah, and I think the only way we find out about a lot of these things is either through personal experience, like I went to my Toyota dealer and didn't get served, or regulatory disclosure. So they disclosed in an SEC filing, and there are now implications for that with some of the new legislations. It's going to have a material impact on the business until recovery efforts are complete. We see these high-profile stories every week now, every day. We saw the Las Vegas hotel shutdowns, and impact. And the net bottom line is they're all paying the ransom, or many of them are.
Yeah, and let's get to that story too. So the you mentioned it earlier, the cyber attack that targeted the company that handles the financial transaction side of car buying for some 15,000 car dealers in the U.S. finally ended, and basically they're saying that they paid the ransom. According to sources who spoke with CNN, CDK paid a ransom of $25 million to end this attack. The ransom was paid in Bitcoin, so there could be no trace. And it's basically the hackers are affiliated with a type of ransomware called Black Suit. A week after the payment was made, CDK said it was bringing car dealers back online to its software platform. The cyber attack lasted 2 weeks and proved a massive embarrassment for car dealer software company CDK. The hack crippled car dealers and forced them to revert to doing business with pen and paper, and the outage likely affected vehicle sales numbers for the month of June. So did you have to go with your Toyota dealer and do pen and paper transaction, or did you just like walk out of the dealership?
They couldn't schedule it. I mean, it impacted scheduling, and I couldn't get a firm commitment on how many hours or days would it take to get the car back.
So this was a service issue?
Yeah, this was all service companies within hundreds of dealerships nationwide.
So it wasn't just you trying to buy a car. Yeah,
the impact is ongoing, so I don't think they fully recovered from the second and third order effects. And I think what's happening is a lot of these companies are being infected and they don't really have a playbook, or, in this case, the firm Bassett talked about activating its incident response plan, shutting down some IT systems, but these seem very old fashioned, incident response plans, disaster recovery spans. You got to wonder, they have, there are ways to very quickly recover from these events with, pretty advanced backup storage solutions. I won't call out vendors and solutions, but you got to wonder how up to date they are in their playbooks and in their responses.
I've got an image of my head of a big like phone book style book, and someone brings it out of an old closet and they go, and the dust flies off of it because it hasn't been opened in 3 weeks. You're exactly right.
It's so diabolical. It's like, these aren't tech companies, furniture companies, car dealerships. They barely are leveraging advanced technologies. So, there's going to be, they need a lot of help.
Yeah. What's your thought about whether companies should pay the ransom or not? Because it does feel like the big trend for the last year or so has been, we're going to pay them. And now we're seeing this vicious cycle of, the hackers are like, they're going to pay. Why might as well just keep going because this is working.
Well, it's very easy for you and me as pontificators to say, don't pay the ransom.
I know.
If your child is abducted, are you going to say don't pay the ransom? Your probably first instinct is, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll give you money. Just get my child back. And that's a logical conclusion. I think there's going to have to be some, government support potentially, or cyber insurance or other mechanisms to deal with this, because simply saying don't pay the ransom isn't enough from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, would a risk insurance type policy for hacking and ransomware, would it cover the payment from the insurance side?
I'm not familiar enough with the policies and the ins and outs. But there are increasingly solutions and options for that sort of thing.
In fact, I have a cousin who works in the insurance industry. I'm going to call him after the show and see if they are starting those types of policies.
Yeah, certainly. I have insurance against impacts to my little business, and there's all kinds of insurance policies, and I think that's going to be a growing business, sadly.
Yeah, and with a lot of these ransomware attacks where the companies were paying the ransom, it was usually like hospitals and places with critical infrastructure that needed to be kind of up and running. You couldn't shut it down. But now with this CDK one, it did take them 2 weeks, and so maybe they were initially reluctant to pay the ransom, and again, this is just me pontificating and speculating. Maybe they said after 2 weeks, like, okay, we can't not pay the ransom, and we need to get back up online with a lot of these things. So that's usually what made the decision. I'm just theorizing here.
Well, there's more to come, and I think we've got Black Hat, which is a big security conference in August in Las Vegas. We'll hear a lot more about the whole landscape from the real practitioners and industry insiders, and there should be some good data and insights coming out of Black Hat.
All right, and so then the third story that I wanted to talk about around what hacking this week was Disney's internal Slack platform was leaked by hackers that are mad about AI. So this wasn't necessarily, this is more of a leak story than an actual like breach or data theft. I guess you could call a leak is data theft. So over a terabyte of data supposedly obtained from Disney's internal messaging channels has been leaked online by a self-proclaimed hacktivist group, including login credentials, code, images, and information about unreleased projects. The anonymous group, calling itself Null Bulge, has claimed responsibility for the leak, alleging to have gained access to the company's Slack messaging data via a compromised computer of a Disney employee. Anything we could get our hands on, we downloaded and packaged up, the group said on X, claiming that they have obtained 1.1 terabytes of files and chat messages from almost 10,000 corporate Disney Slack channels. Disney has since confirmed to the Wall Street Journal that it is, quote, investigating this matter. And basically they said that they did this because they were mad about, they wanted to protect artists' rights and compensation, telling the Wall Street Journal it had targeted Disney due to how it handles artist contracts, its approach to AI, and its pretty blatant disregard for the consumer. So first question, does this seem like a legitimate reason to leak data from a company, or if you are really that mad in the hacktivism space?
I mean, I kind of don't blame them. The other day I saw a commercial for Overstock.com. That was AI generated.
Oh, really?
Because the spokesperson literally said, we're saving you, the customer, money by creating this commercial through AI.
Wow.
And I'm like, yep, that's the start.
Yeah.
That's the start of it. So as someone who works in video, right, that's kind of a little scary.
It's a little sensitive subject for you. Yeah.
So, but anyways.
Evan, I mean, is this surprising to you from the hacktivism side of things? Usually the hacktivists go after companies for, making record profits or climate concerns or things like that. This is the first time I think I've seen a hack that has been like, well, we're worried about you using AI.
Yeah, look, I mean, the reality is a huge percentage of hacks are internal employees, disgruntled employees who've been laid off, fired, downsized, or people who have a grudge against particular industries or companies. And that's always going to exist.
Yeah.
And so the question is more, how does companies like Disney, which are, have huge internal IT and security teams, how do they secure their sort of partners' software supply chains? Like, how does this even happen? And increasingly, it's not a direct hack. It's third-party cloud services. It's third-party storage on databases that are outside of the company's control. And this whole issue is going to be increasingly a problem. You're always going to have disgruntled employees who are always looking for some kind of revenge for whatever issue. I mean, I don't see how you can, analyze each one of these.
We don't know necessarily that this was a disgruntled employee from Disney. This could have been they could have used social engineering to get the password or network access as well. That's what happened in the Vegas MGM thing.
Right.
They impersonated an employee and then got the credentials. So that is one thing to look at to see how they actually got in. If you've worked with a lot of enterprise companies and seen a lot of the security things, do you place the responsibility on this to Disney, or is this more of a Slack issue from like you said, the third party app approach?
It's sort of a supply chain issue. When you're a supplier to Disney, you have to meet certain standards and requirements for securing data, and companies have hundreds of SaaS applications like Slack.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you keep every one of those applications and all the data generated secure? So it's a huge challenge on the supply chain and the vendor partners. And we're going to see more of this because, I'm working from home, but, you got 100 tabs open in your browser with different enterprise applications. And, they all potentially are vulnerabilities and data can leak.
Yeah.
So it's not so much finger pointing as, like we saw with the supply chain crisis, every company in the stack has to ensure, the integrity there. And at the end of the day, Disney has to take ownership or responsibility for all of that. I think it's interesting. We haven't seen much of this when it comes to messaging, but everything is vulnerable. Our texts, our emails, our calendars,
right?
There's all kinds of attacks on calendars now. Our Google or other calendars are now our messages, phone calls, voicemails. I mean, all of these things need to be secured.
Do you think this will raise a red flag, or with a lot of companies that look at this and going, "Oh boy, maybe we could be vulnerable as well"? Depending, again,
totally.
Or is this just be like, "Oh, this is just another example, and we're okay, or we should be all right"?
It's sort of like the airplane industry. Every time there's a crash, sadly, the industry learns something and gets somewhat better, and hopefully there are lessons. And with each of these hacks, you can see at Black Hat, there'll be lessons learned and takeaways and changes made to maybe, configuration and storage, archiving of Slack and other tools. But, then the hackers will move on to the next thing. So.
Yeah. There was some details about what the conversations were about, and a lot of it was about software development, recruitment, website maintenance, employee programs dating back to at least 2019. According to Eurogamer, details regarding upcoming gaming collaboration and unannounced video game sequels obtained via the leaked files have also starting to emerge online. So we're starting to then see what some of these conversations were. Fortunately, all of my Slack conversations are just goofy chat things. I don't necessarily reveal anything through my Slack communications. I don't think I do. But
well, you can take that. You can take that giant terabyte Slack file and mine it for all kinds of juicy insights and information. If he was a truly bad actor, that's probably what they would do. Could they use it for Could they use it for blackmail purposes at some point? Or I think investing, stock, insights, personal information is always useful, and you just put it on the dark web and let people go at it. Is sort of how these things tend to evolve. Yeah. So definitely a lot of hacking different security things. And it, like you said, it's interesting that this is happening right before Black Hat too. So I'm sure we'll start hearing of more and more as those summer conventions heat up, right? Right. All right. So I want to switch gears now and talk about the Amazon Prime Day, which then was 3 days, which then it was a week or a month because I think they had pre-sales and stuff like that. So online spending in the U.S. surged 11% year over year to $14.2 billion during Amazon's 48-hour Prime Day event. Although, so they say 48 hours, but I thought it was 3 days. I thought it was the 16th, 17th, and 18th. But they did basically topped their estimates and they set a new record according to Adobe Analytics. Adobe said the strong showing was driven by back-to-school shopping and an apparent product refresh cycle as consumers look to snap up new tablets, TVs, and Bluetooth speakers in droves. That's a shift from last year when inflation-weary shoppers used the discount event to stock up on household essentials, such as pantry staples and office supplies. Company had predicted U.S. shoppers would spend $14 billion online during the 3-day event. Adobe tracks transactions not just on Amazon, but also across a wide swath of U.S. retail sites. The Prime Day event has become a big revenue driver for other retailers, which often hold competing sales timed around Prime Day. So I thought that's the interesting part, too, is that now Prime Day is almost like the summer shopping season for deals. I mean, I've heard people do Black Friday in July type of promotions. I know that in Massachusetts, and Evan, you're from Massachusetts as well, there's always that tax-free weekend in the second weekend of August. There's always back-to-school shopping that happens. And so there is this idea of almost a second holiday season that happens in the summer. And that seems interesting to me, but I'm also not a shopper as well. So I did shop on Amazon for one thing that was not a deal. I was just happened to be, I need this one thing. So am I just missing something? Is this more of an event to other people than it is to me? I'm in your camp. I almost feel like I have everything I need, and I don't know despite best efforts, I don't know what other tech I need to buy right now. We all have iPhones and that are lasting longer. I mean, family members have iPhones that are 3 years old, work great. The upgrade cycles are elongated. I mean, laptops that are multiple years old still work great.
Yeah.
And so I'm not seeing, at least on the big ticket, like electronics items, have the biggest and brightest and most amazing TV I think I'll ever need. I'm not sure what's driving the need for those big purchases. Obviously, discounts and back to school and all that phenomenon is great.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering for the prosumer or consumer, is it going to be AI PCs and, is it going to be AI smartphones or the next Apple? I'm not sure what's going to drive that. The tech is so good.
Yeah, even the stats we're seeing around the predictions around the AI PCs and the features that are being touted are not that impressive to me. And I'm a tech guy, and so if maybe they're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the people that might be interested in this stuff, but a lot of the surveys we've seen too have just said that like consumers are not that interested in a lot of these AI features yet. Or they haven't done a good job of explaining how these will help, if they will help at all.
Yeah, I think the big growth area seems to be the super cheap end of the market. The Gen Zs buying from Temu and Shine and these online direct resellers where you do get something like really cheap and cheerful, as they say in England. And I see Amazon's going to start competing with those sort of under $800 purchases direct fulfilled from China. So if you're 20 and you got $100 to spend, you want it to go a long way. It seems to be the fastest growing part of the market, which is a little sad as well. A lot of that stuff is real.
My oldest
really
daughter,
questionable.
my oldest daughter is about to enter college, and she she was hanging out with me last night and said, "Oh, I got to go online. I got to go online and get some stuff for Prime Day." And I looked at her and said, "Do you need anything? Do you really need anything?" And she looked at me and was like, "No, not really." But she felt like the urge, whether it was all of the influencers that are talking to her or, because again, every other site out there, they put up stories about, oh, here are the best deals for Prime Day. And, when you look on the site, I was like, don't need it. And maybe it's just, again,
I think the fastest growth is coming from, the social media purchases. Yeah. It's TikTok Shop, it's Instagram stores, it's places where you got someone pushing one product and, the big, Amazons, of course, are doing fine, but yeah, they're not in ultra high growth mode anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm wondering, have you seen any major changes on the Amazon site to go and compete against some of these newer sites? I haven't really seen it, but again, I don't use the mobile app as much as I do with my web browser.
They're trying to reply or compete with influencers. Influencers can now have their own Amazon store. I was offered one, but I haven't set it up.
See, I would buy stuff from you, Evan. I think if you set up your own Amazon channel, you let me know and tell me what you want me to buy from you.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll work on that.
Okay.
But I think that's a big trend. But it's a pretty busy site, and it's getting a lot of scrutiny now from some of their business tactics as well. So that's going to put a damper in some ways on the business. But, it's Amazon. What can you say? Yeah.
Do you see the other big retailers also following suit, like Walmart and Target? Do you not track a lot of that details?
I look at Walmart and Target. They seem very Me Too.
Yeah.
I think the hot growth in retail are experiences, really unique, interesting in-store experiences, and everything else online has become a bit of a Me Too.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I want to ask you, do you or your family, does your wife do a lot of this Prime Day stuff, or do you kind of shield yourself from the noise of that?
No, we try to stay away from that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just don't really need anything.
Well, what about stuff for your child?
I mean, we need stuff for our child so frequently that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't necessarily live around the idea of a 1 day sale.
Yeah.
Or 2 day sale.
No.
Okay. All right. Just checking in. Chris is our millennial expert, by the way, Evan.
I wish I had that skill. I don't understand the millennials or the Gen Zs. I'm trying. I'm working on it.
All right. I want to go to our last topic of the week, which is the which I call AI Corner. We always have something to talk about on AI. There's something always going on, but the big news story for us this week, and again, this may be a little bit of inside baseball, Evan. So I'm going to warn the viewers that they might not care about this at all, but this is something that's happening with the publishing world. Is that apparently Apple, NVIDIA, and Anthropic reportedly used YouTube transcripts without permission to train their AI models. This was a story that was in Engadget. There was another company that also wrote about it. Some of the world's largest tech companies trained their AI models on a data set that included transcripts of more than 173,000 YouTube videos without permission, which is an investigation from Proof News. The data set, which was created by a nonprofit company called Eleuther AI, contains transcripts of YouTube videos from more than 48,000 channels and was used by Apple, NVIDIA, and Anthropic, among other companies. The findings of the investigation spotlight AI's uncomfortable truth. The technology is largely built on the backs of data siphoned from creators without their consent or compensation. I know that two of the big creators in the world, Marquise Brownlees and Mr. Beast, as well as large news publishers like the New York Times, BBC, ABC News, and as well as subtitles from videos belonging to Engadget, are also part of the data set. An interesting part of this as well is that Proof News set up a tool. So if you have a YouTube channel, you can check to see if your data set was part of it. And it turns out that even IDG Tech Talk, this channel that we've had, has a bunch. There were 7 videos that were used, and it turns out that those are videos, I think, with transcripts on it. So these are older videos where we were putting in the transcript files, Chris, I think. And one of the videos includes me, so I'm pretty happy that I'm part of this data set.
Keith, you finally made it.
I finally made it. This was when I was a guest on the previous version of Today in Tech. So this was an episode that we did in 2020 before the pandemic. We were talking about the world of robotics. So this was when I was covering robotics for the other publication. And I came in and talked to Ken and Juliet. And so that one is part of the ones so I feel proud that something that I've said is now training an AI somewhere. But again, I understand the whole Mr. Beast and the really large influencers out there that might be annoyed by that. I did forward this email or the link of the story to our own legal department to see if they wanted to do anything about it, or if because they tend to also often go after scrapers of our content. So, Evan, do you have a YouTube channel, or did you have one at one point, or no?
Yeah, I have one, and I'm a big YouTube fan, and always on YouTube. I mean, the dirty little secret is that this is how AI is trained,
right? And
that OpenAI, from its inception, basically is sucking the entire internet into its training model. And I talked to someone who's in the know, and I said, well, what do you mean the entire internet? Like, how does that work? He said, every piece of data on the internet that's available has been used to train OpenAI, GPT-4o, and now next, whatever they call it, GPT-5.
Right.
So this has been going on. It's sort of an unsaid, kind of thing. I'm not even sure you call it scraping. I'm not sure the technical term of art for how this is done, but that's why it's so amazing. It's because the, gazillion bytes of data that have been put into these models. And so this is just an illustration of what's already happening. And although it's, interesting that we're calling out specific examples and cases, the idea that we didn't know, or we're shocked that gambling is going on in the casino is a little silly. I mean, and this will have to work itself out in the courts. I mean, it's already many, many lawsuits and legal discussions happening on training AI models without consent, and terms of service issues, transparency issues. I mean, this is our world in AI for the next years and years.
Right. I think in the early days when they were discovering that they were scraping a lot of this internet content, I think I made a comment that most influencers or most video people should just start scraping, or just start declaring falsehoods. And like, we should just start saying like, oh, well, 2 + 2 is 5. Of course it is. And then because that would then get scraped and then, you start creating kind of garbage content. Most people watching it would know I'm being sarcastic, but I don't think that a lot of these AIs yet understand sarcasm. And that's why we get stories like the whole glue on pizza thing because they were scraping content from Reddit and it was a joke on a post on Reddit, but somehow that got into the Google Gemini algorithm and then they were recommending putting glue on pizza to make the cheese stick to the rest of the pizza.
Yeah, and it's not just influencers, it's authors, it's everyone.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why if I want to write a story in the style of Stephen King, it does an amazing job of creating that piece. It's because it's absorbed every Stephen King novel, article, and video interview he's ever done. Right? And that's just clear so it understands how to create based on his style and the nuances of him and his writing and whatever personality. So, welcome to the brave new world.
Yeah. Do you think there's an ethical issue that a lot of these companies are not considering?
No, it's terrible. Absolutely. I think the European Union is recognizing this, which is why a number of companies, including Meta, are not going to be deploying AI in Europe. This is how it's done. And, we're the Wild West of tech in the US. So we just do this stuff rather with.
We don't care about ethics, I guess, in the US as much as we should. I mean, again, when I trained as a journalist, we had to take an ethics course. There was a lot of discussion around ethics. And I just feel like all of these new companies that can come up with this new technology, like they're just throwing ethics out the window and It reminds me of like that Jurassic Park thing. Like they're doing it because they can, not because whether they should or not. And, with the creation of dinosaurs based on DNA. You remember that movie, right, Evan?
One of my favorites. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was all in on the series. So, I think they're finished now. I think they got the point across.
Right. And I do agree with you. I think this is going to have to be settled in the legal system. And I would still say it's a 50-50 shot here. If the courts do rule in favor of the content owners that this is a copyright infringement, they might say that you just have to license it. So you can still get the data, but you have to pay the original owner of some sort.
Yeah, have to. I think they have to meet in the middle, and the big content companies are doing deals with OpenAI and others, and that will continue to happen. And, we saw Reddit are licensing out their data set for use for training. Twitter, of course, is using it for their own Grok AI. Musk has 100,000 GPUs now he's doing training on. So, this will sort itself out. It's messy and ugly, but it's another blow to content creators and publishers who have been beaten down, battered down for decades.
I'll tell you, this wasn't the whole influencer movement, content creator movement. Wasn't that supposed to democratize all of the worlds and the opinions? But now, like, big business is basically taking it over, and now they're basically using us for free again.
Yeah, totally. So it's it shows like this. Maybe that's the last bastion of, independent thought. They can't just copy our long-term voices and conversations yet.
Well, they will. They will.
Yeah, the written word is being sucked up to the point where, I don't know, is there value in being a blogger or a writer in terms of, income? And I wonder.
Yeah. And at least on the video side, they haven't yet perfected it, but like Chris said earlier, it's getting better and better. All right, so I want to segue into the last story that I want to talk about and this was from a few weeks ago. So if you have heard about this already, then that's fine. But if you haven't yet, you can now get an AI Judy Garland or James Dean to read you the news. So Liza Minnelli, the daughter of Judy Garland, has given AI startup 11 Labs permission to recreate her mother's voice for their new Reader app. Garland joins James Dean, Burt Reynolds, and Sir Laurence Olivier as deceased stars whose AI voices are in the iconic voice collection thanks to deals with their estates for undisclosed amounts of money. The voices will exist solely on the Reader app, and people can use them for things like narrating an ebook. And this is a quote: "It's exciting to see our mother's voice available to the countless millions of people who love her," said Monelli, the representative of the Judy Garland estate. A sample of Garland reading The Wizard of Oz appears on 11 Labs promotional video on YouTube. So if you watch that YouTube video there that you're seeing on the screen, you can hear it. I heard it, and it didn't really sound to me like Judy Garland. I think that they might have to, it's either that or I'm so used to people imitating Judy Garland that maybe I felt like her real voice wasn't the real voice. But again, this is still an AI version of her. So again, we've covered this idea of dead people being able to be recreated through either AI voice, and there's some people that are doing AI video around that. Do you? And I'm still on the fence about whether or not I support this idea or not. We talked on the show a couple weeks ago about AI. Al Michaels is going to be doing voice updates or AI voice news updates from the Olympics. And so I thought it was weird that he would do that rather than allowing another broadcaster to. But I think on that case, it's just the scale of what they need to do for personalized sports updates. They couldn't do it with a regular broadcaster, and that's why they went the AI route. But I thought it was weird because Al Michaels, is still alive. So, or at least he was at the time of the recording. I want to make sure I don't get in trouble there. So what are your thoughts, Evan, on is this just a kind of a gimmicky thing, or is this something that we should be concerned about? Is this something that's going to take away jobs in the future if we could just basically hire a spokesperson and it's like again, when Morgan Freeman passes away and you want a Morgan Freeman voice, that's what you're going to go to.
As
right?
always, they're amazing and good use cases, and there's just going to be terrible abuse of this technology. I, for one, and I think Apple already talked about this, having multiple AI voice readers you can choose for audiobooks. I'm a big audiobook fan, but often I really don't like the reader for whatever reason, their style or accent. So the idea of choosing, okay, I'm going to have David Attenborough read this book about, natural history. I'm going to have Morgan Freeman read this crime novel. I mean, how cool is that? That would be a huge boost. And I think as long as it's above board and all the licensing is done and supported, would be great for me. So I think that use cases like that are amazing. And then you have people imitating Joe Rogan's voice doing, scummy ads for supplements on social media.
Right.
That look and feel like it's him talking. So upsides and downsides. And I think, but generally this idea of personalization of voices and environments is really exciting. And I hope to use these services.
Can the industry protect themselves against this? Is this something that I guess an actor, this is one of the big reasons that the SAG strike from 5 or 6 months ago, that was one of the bigger issues. So they could probably protect themselves. And I would imagine that an estate could protect themselves if the actor passes away. I'm just wondering about whether, again, you get to that influencer level, maybe can they protect themselves? I suppose if anybody wants to steal my voice, I'm not going to be able to do anything. Right.
No, and in fact, I built using a service called HeyGen. I'm not promoting them, but
yeah,
I built a model of my voice and likeness I can use to read my blogs or post on social content that has me talking.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting use of the technology. But the companies are going to abuse it, and we saw with OpenAI, the voice that had the likeness, it sounded like Scarlett Johansson. Right. They denied it. I don't see how you could deny it sounded like her. I mean, from my point of view, it was her. It was literally Scarlett from the movie Her.
Yeah.
And due to an uproar, they finally, and her, stepping up, they finally took it down. But yeah, how do you police this? Very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting to see if this will develop beyond just this one app to see. Because again, I remember being, when there was the big example back in the, I think either 80s, 90s or early 2000s was the Fred Astaire dancing with a mop to sell a vacuum. Do you remember that, Evan?
We're sounding very old now.
I know,
First
I do.
Judy Garling and then Fred
know.
Astaire. I mean, we're not quite in our 70s yet, so maybe we can pick some more Gen Z millennial references here.
Well, you remember that commercial though, right?
I remember the commercial.
That was the first.
The movie.
Yeah, that was the first. It was almost like early CGI. And again, it's the first thing that happens, and then you see a snowball effect. So, all right, I think that's all we're going to talk about on that issue. I think we'll see what happens there. So, but at the moment, I might be interested because I'm interested more in the Burt Reynolds app. Because I'm a big Burt Reynolds fan from his movies Cannonball Run and Smokey the Bandit. So, all right, Evan. Again, thanks for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. We're not going to be on next week, so we'll see you in a few weeks.
Fantastic! It's been fun.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Tell me about the AI stuff. See if you like that. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.